while in costume as Chewbacca for Return of the Jedi, filming deep in the Redwood Forests, Bigfoot country, 7'3" actor Peter Mayhew was told not to just wander off into the woods while dressed as a big hairy thing, and he had to be accompanied by crew members wearing brightly colored clothing at all times. Why did they have to do such things deep in the Redwood Forest, you ask? Well, that's Bigfoot country, and some people were worried that a hunter would mistake poor Peter Mayhew for a Sasquatch. Mayhew himself was quoted in a 2013 book, The Making of Return of the Jedi. Peter said, "It was known as Bigfoot country, so I got strict instructions not to wander off in costume. Can you imagine it? I'm in full costume, going through the undergrowth, and some guy jumps up with a big shotgun and bang! I got Bigfoot!" It's a fun, interesting, humorous, behind-the-scenes Star Wars story that nerds and crypto enthusiasts have been sharing for years. And yeah, it is kind of a dangerous thing to just go wandering off dressed like a furry creature when there's armed outdoorsmen out there. And no offense to the artists and magicians who put together the Chewbacca costume, but to me it's still not as believable as Patty. So yeah, this fun behind-the-scenes Star Wars story, well, it got me thinking. It got me asking myself some questions. About life, about love, about art, about science, about nature, about Chewbacca, and about Sasquatch. Is Chewbacca a Sasquatch? I know Chewbacca's a Wookiee, but are Wookiees Sasquatch? What is the connection there? Is there a connection? Or at least an influence and inspiration? Let's find out. Let's take a deep dive into the worlds of Chewbacca and Sasquatch. Before we begin the next episode of That Bigfoot Show, I just want to say thanks for watching, and please like, share, and subscribe, and click that bell to get those notifications if you're into this kind of stuff. Now, let's get back to the show. So like Sasquatch, Wookiees have a very family-oriented culture. Also, like Sasquatch, they are omnivores, and can be friendly or violent. Just depends on the situation. And the special effects sound engineer wizards of Star Wars used bear sounds to create the unique vocals of Mr. Chewbacca. And of course, whenever somebody sees a Sasquatch, the first thing anyone says is, "Are you sure it wasn't a bear?" Another little interesting similarity about Wookiees and Sasquatch-like creatures is that they have become kind of unofficial Christmas characters, both creatures being featured in Christmas TV specials.
Whoa, wait a minute, one at a time.
But what really gives some strength and power to the argument that Chewbacca and Sasquatch are one and the same is a non-canon comic book. And even though it's non-canon, it exists in reality, and that's all that matters, like Sasquatch. And this comic book is not just any ordinary Star Wars comic book. No, this is when Indiana Jones and Han Solo officially have a crossover. In a way, this short comic book story was written by W. Hayden Blackman, and we just want to thank this man for giving us some Star Wars media that actually answers the question, is Chewbacca a Sasquatch? Is Sasquatch Chewbacca? The comic is called Into the Great Unknown, and was written in the year 2004. Anno Domini. You can find this one in Star Wars Tales 19. Let's go over it a little bit. It opens with the Millennium Falcon in an intense, epic Star Wars space battle. Han and Chewie are up to no good as usual, and even though he's like the best pilot in the galaxy, he crashes into a planet that I like to call Earth, sometime in the 1800s. And wouldn't you know it, they land in what is basically the Redwood Forest. Han Solo even comments on how this looks exactly like Endor, which is funny because they shot the Endor scenes in the Redwood Forest, ha ha ha. But unfortunately, Han Solo is killed by the bows and arrows of some Native American indigenous warriors. Han Solo frickin' dies in Chewie's arms. It's heartbreaking, and poor Chewie screams out in agony over the loss of his BFF. His roars and his screams echo through the forest, and those Native American indigenous warrior people, well, they hear it and say, "Sasquatch." Now poor lonesome Chewie roams the forests. A century or so later, Indiana Jones and Short Round are on one of their adventure expedition things. I believe they're actually with a Native American guide looking for a Sasquatch-like creature or something. They follow the tracks all the way to the crash site of the Millennium Falcon, and Indiana Jones comes face to face with the skeleton of Han Solo, which gives Indy a strange feeling, and he calls the remains familiar. Because both characters were played by actor Harrison Ford, in case you were wondering. So yeah, Indiana Jones feels himself in these bones. He can feel it in his bones. And because of this strange feeling, he decides to just, give up on the most amazing discovery ever. The dude finds Bigfoot, an alien ship, humanoid alien bones, and he does nothing about it because he has a feeling? He's the worst archaeologist ever, but still a badass. So yeah, there's another Bigfoot-Chewbacca connection, even though it's a really depressing one, because think about it. Han Solo dies, and then Chewbacca's destined to just roam the Redwood Forest all by himself until he dies of old age. I actually really love this story, but a lot of people criticize it for being so depressing. But that is not the only Chewbacca-Sasquatch connection. George Lucas himself, the guy who, created this Star Wars stuff, he brought in other creative artists to help bring this universe to life and these characters, and one of those people was illustrator Ralph McQuarrie. This is the guy who did the poster art, the beautiful poster art, of the film The Legend of Boggy Creek, and its 1984 sequel. So George Lucas asked the Boggy Creek poster guy to help design Chewbacca. So there you have it, some scientific factual facts that the creation of the character Chewbacca from the Star Wars was inspired by a Bigfoot movie, at least the poster. So yeah, you got the Legend of Boggy Creek, the Fouke Monster, the Skunk Ape out there, and the Honey Island Swamp Monster, which has even been referred to as the Southern Wookiee. So real people are using the word Wookiee to describe these creatures now. When you look at some witness reports, especially those from children, a lot of them describe their sightings as looking like Chewbacca. One child witness even referred to a creature as a Chewbacca man in West Texas. And I'm sure there are a few hoaxers out there that were just Star Wars nerds cosplaying in the woods. I'm sure it's happened, but that's very dangerous, of course. And at least the Return of the Jedi crew understood that. Another quick PSA, kids, don't dress in fur and run through the forest, especially during hunting season. But yeah, back to the character design of Chewbacca. George Lucas also asked to incorporate influences from character designs of the Game of Thrones guy, George R.R. Martin's short story from 1975. It's called And 7 Times Never Kill a Man. There are some furry creatures in that story that obviously inspired the creation of Chewbacca. George Lucas and George R.R. Martin, they really helped the hairy humanoid legend stay alive in modern times. And I am absolutely sure that the spike in interest of Sasquatch creatures in the 70s was directly influenced by Chewie himself. So yeah, we here, humans and Sasquatches, we live here on Earth, but Wookiees, they live on the planet Kashyyyk. And there are many, many theories out there that maybe Sasquatch was originally from another planet, or hairy alien visitors, who really like to go visit our national parks. But yeah, the theory of Bigfoot being an alien, that's been around for a long time, and the popularity of Chewbacca just encourages that theory to keep thriving. But let's get down to the real origin, the absolute origin of Chewbacca. When George Lucas was writing Star Wars, when he was creating these characters, he really liked the dynamic and the image of himself driving around in his car with his dog. So he just added some science fiction to that and turned this man's best friend relationship, dog and man, into Wookiee and Han Solo. So when you really get down to it, Chewbacca basically represents a dog. And that makes a lot of people be like, see, no, he has nothing to do with Sasquatch, he's a dog. Haven't you seen Spaceballs? Then I say, but what about Dog-Man sightings? Dogman sightings and Sasquatch sightings are kind of running a little parallel. Conversations of those cryptids seem to be blending together nowadays. So the dog element of this Chewbacca story just fuels the fire for the Sasquatch elements as well. So there's a comic book out there that tells us that Chewbacca did inspire the legend of this unknown cryptid creature, and Lucas himself asked the Boggy Creek guy to help design Chewie. And Chewbacca is now a word used by witnesses to describe certain sightings. So in the humble opinion of this narrator, the short answer is yes. Chewbacca is a Sasquatch. Sasquatch is Chewbacca. In a way, Sasquatches are Wookiees, and Wookiees are Sasquatches. It just depends on how you look at it, which can be said about anything. And since there is not just one type of Bigfoot creature out there, you know, every culture in every corner of this planet has one. Why can't Sasquatch exist on other planets? Even fictional ones, like Kashyyyk. Just like the indigenous cultures who told stories of hairy monsters in the woods, George Lucas has continued that legend for the modern world. But his cave paintings were movie theaters and Disney+. Yes, I know Star Wars is a work of fiction, but it makes you think. Maybe, just maybe, there is a planet out there full of fur. And maybe, just maybe, every now and then they swing by to say hello. Or say, grrr. So yeah, maybe it wasn't that long ago. And maybe a galaxy far, far away isn't that far, far away after all. Maybe there's a Star Wars character right outside your window.
Well, you said it, Chewie.
So yeah, what do you think? Am I just a crazy person saying crazy things? Or are the connections between Chewbacca and Sasquatch worth looking at? I think Chewbacca is worthy of an episode, and he's also worthy of a medal. Thank you for watching That Bigfoot Show. I've been your host / narrator person, Taylor James Johnson. Please comment your comment in the comments if you have things that are worth saying, typing. And if you have had a sighting, an encounter of something squatchy or Chewbacca-y, let us know. We'd love to talk with you. So yeah, this has been That Bigfoot Show. Yeah, that one.
Chewie!